Hello, this is my A attempt. This is my Circ10 A attempt. My name is Christian Williams. It is November 28th of 2021. Uh, what I decided to do in this project for the attempt was include a component that's been kind of taunting me in my kit ever since we got this kit at the beginning of the semester, which was namely an LCD screen. Um, and the idea or proposition of being able to use that in this project was very appealing to me, so I decided to incorporate that as one of my components. It is not on the list. I have included components that are on the list required for this project, but I had a lot of trouble getting this temperature sensor to work, as my professor probably understands. For some reason, I kept on getting negative temperature readings and so on, and a lot of troubleshooting and so on, finally revealing that it looks like may have an electrical fault in my laptop. So I decided to kind of reward myself by using this LCD screen, as opposed to just, I don't know, hooking up a servo or something. Um, so for the A attempt, what I did here is include an LCD screen. The LCD screen is included with this kit. It is a 2 by, I believe, 16 character display screen. And how we activate that is similar to how we used our servo. We have to include a library for our liquid crystal.h, which we have done down there. And we are still using the TMP36 sensor, which is connected to our analog pin 0. And when I was looking up a bunch of tutorials and stuff online, they use define instead of integer with their pins, so I've decided to kind of start doing that as well. And then we, just like the servo library, we have to create an LCD object. So before we created a servo object and named it servo, in this case, we're doing the same thing. Liquid crystal LCD equals liquid crystal. But there are several ports on this crystal display that we can use to control like the bits or the resolution or a bunch of other things. And so we have to define which pins we're using. We are currently using this parameter, the RS, E, D4, D5, D6, D7. There are 16 pins on this, and you can note, as you can see right there, we're not using all 16, but we are using pins 2 through 7. So that basically is just telling our computer the parameters that we're setting for our LCD and which pins the Arduino will be using to communicate with it. And this is all information that is included in this library that's included with this kit. Yeah, so you can see currently it's set to 4-bit mode using pins 2 through 7. Now we go into our void setup. We are specifying the LCD's number of columns and rows. Since this is a 16 by 2, we do LCD.begin 16 by 2. So whenever you start using an LCD, you have to start with this begin line, basically to help define what screen we're using. And then we're also creating a serial communication. That's what you can see in the right over here. We kind of explain that in B and C. And we were encouraged in the A attempt to use a different bandwidth. So I'm currently using this rate here as opposed to the 9600. And you can see in my bottom right, I currently have that set up correctly over there. Then we get onto our void loop. So the loop here, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a reading from the temperature sensor. That reading is stored in this integer. That integer is then converted to a float, which is the voltage, and that voltage takes the reading and multiplies it by this formula. During the troubleshoot project with my professor, Mr. Garcia, he said that if I could find another way of getting this sensor to work that was a little bit more reliable, I could feel free to use that since I was having a lot of trouble. So B and C used a different formula to get this sensor to work. In this case, I am using this formula. So we're doing a reading times 5,000 divided by 1,024 and storing that into a float. That float value, voltage, is then converted into Celsius by subtracting 500 and dividing it by 10. Then we convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, which is the reading in Celsius times 1.8 plus 32. This is a real-world formula, so you now know how to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit if anyone asked you. We then will first print the temperature in our serial monitor, which you can see is still running on the right there. We do that by doing serial print Celsius. Note we are not using quotation marks around Celsius because this Celsius is the value up here. It is that float value. So we will not be using the apostrophes there. Down here, however, I want to demonstrate that this is a Celsius reading. So because we're using a character string, or in this case, a single character, the letter C, we do use these quotation marks. That's what that difference there helps determine to our serial what is a value that can change and what is a character. So in the right here, you can see the value, Celsius value, is around 22.75, and the character C is printed immediately after it. That's what those two lines will do. And it will take that reading and do those computations every 1 second due to this delay function down here. Now we get to the LCD screen. The LCD screen, we are basically manipulating a cursor in this case. I'm basically using coordinates, if you want to think of it this way. Our computer, however, always starts at 0. So the coordinate 0, 0 refers to the first character on the first line. So in this case, I want a little bit of an offset from the edge. So the second on the first line, that is what we'll be using. And then we'll be printing the character string temperature. Again, remember we're using those apostrophes. And then once we're done printing that, we'll then move the cursor again, and we're doing it to the second column on the second row. Remember, because we're starting at 0, because that's how computers think. We are then printing the value Celsius, followed by the character C. So, just like before, Celsius here does not have any quotations marks, and the C followed by a space, in this case, does have quotation marks. Then we'll follow with our Fahrenheit reading, which will print the value Fahrenheit, again, no quotation marks, followed by the character F and a space, using those quotation marks. All right, so that is everything to do with the code. Now we move into real life. So this is the setup right here. Don't worry that you can't see anything on the LCD screen, because that's going to be something that I have to explain in the wiring here. So right there is our TMP sensor, just hanging out by itself. As you can see, it is still connected to analog 0, following that green wire here, along with our positive and negative. We have a potentiometer plugged in here, similar to the potentiometer that we used in a previous A attempt. This is hardwired into the board and doesn't actually provide any feedback into the Arduino itself, but it does provide some information to our LCD screen, which I'll demonstrate in a little bit. So you can see we have our positive and negative over here. It is bridging the gap, so the sensor pin is right there. I believe that's in line 3. We have positive and negative, which is our voltage and ground for our LCD screen. These wires right here help plug in those the buses used for the 4-bit setting, I believe, that we're using here, along with additional ground here. And you can see all those sensors up here. So why isn't the LCD screen changing anything? Well, this potentiometer is hooked to the contrast of the LCD screen. So if I continue to twist it, hey, there we go. Temperature 22.75 degrees Celsius, which means 72.08 degrees Fahrenheit. That is what a sensor is reading here. And just to show that it's not something I'm printing or generating, if I touch this sensor, you'll see very slowly as the sensor heats up, those values will increase. I think I got it to go about 85 just by pinching it earlier, but I'll just wait until it gets to 80. Hey, there we go. Temperature of 80 degrees because the sensor is being squeezed by my fingers. And if I let down and let it cool down, you'll see that value slowly drop down to the room temperature. So there we go. That is my LCD thermometer there. Again, the LCD screen was just kind of as a reward to myself because I was having so much trouble getting that sensor to work, all because it looks like there's an electrical fault, so something I could not really, account for. But I had a lot of fun with this. Thank you for watching.